We obviously are really delighted to be able to welcome some guest panelists into today's coffee morning. So we've got Elena from BBS, we have Nick from the Lakeside Fitness Studio, we've got Fred from Strongline Physio, and we've also got Martin from Metro. What I'll do initially is I'll pass over to each of the panelists just to introduce themselves, and then what we can do is we can just kick from there. It's a really casual chat, so if you've got any questions, you know, no questions is a silly one, and hopefully our expert panelists will be able to answer any questions you may have. So what I'll do is I'll pass over to Elena to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Elena. I'm CEO of British Blind Sport. I'm really pleased to see so many people in this call. And really what I want to do today is just try and help advise and tell you where we're at in terms of the lockdown and moving forward, particularly around guidelines. So that's me.
Martin?
Yeah, hi there. I'm Martin Simcox, CEO of Metro Blind Sport. So Metro is an organisation that supports blind and partially sighted people in London to be physically active. We've been doing some work with BBS in terms of how we can look at reopening guidelines, but we'll probably talk about that on the chat today.
Nick?
Hello, yeah, I'm Nick. I'm the visually impaired PT from the Lakeside Fitness Studio. Yeah, just quite excited to be here really to sort of give you any help I can in terms of training, in terms of nutrition, or even things like career and stuff, because obviously I sort of was spent all my years going towards a career in economics, not knowing anything about the world of visual impairment, and then it sort of got landed on me. I always knew there was a problem in my mind, but yeah, then it got sort of, you know, finally got all confirmed and all that, and then I sort of, you know, changed careers and stuff, and yeah, things are going great. So, you know, even stuff on that, I'm happy to answer questions on, or yeah, just happy to help really.
Perfect, thank you. And then last but not least, Fred.
Hi guys, I'm Fred. I'm the director of Strongline Physio. We're based in Wellingborough in Nenton Court. We work with mainly musculoskeletal issues, so anything in terms of aches, pains, muscle strains, things like that. We also work to rehabilitate cancer patients and people with chronic disease. And we also then have a performance side of the company that works supporting sports medicine teams with kind of sporting setups. So I'm just here to talk anything, aches, pains, strains, any questions you have in terms of how to prevent injury as well. Yeah, happy to help. Great to meet you all.
Thank you, that's perfect. I've got a couple of people still in the waiting room, just trying to admit them in. So I've got a few questions that we've had. So at the start of the week, we kind of put this out on our Facebook platforms and on our social media platforms, and welcomed anyone to send in their questions in advance of today's coffee morning. So I've got quite a few questions to ask. So I'll start with just one from a lady called Devinda who was on our Facebook group. And the question was, it might be aimed at you, Fred. What are the best type of foam rollers and are they worth it?
That's a fantastic question, Devinda. So yeah, foam rolling is huge now. So, you know, most people have a foam roller, but I don't know if many people actually use them or know why they're using them. So they come in all different sort of shapes and sizes. In terms of what the best type would be to go for, I would definitely recommend sometimes the actual foam ones, the solid foam ones, tend to squash and they very quickly become kind of egg shaped, so they don't roll as well. So I'd go, the ones we have here are basically a solid bit of PVC piping wrapped in a bit of foam, so they don't squash, they don't deform, so they always roll nicely. You can get ones with knobbly bits on, you can get ones that are kind of smooth. That doesn't necessarily make a difference, but the evidence behind foam rolling is that you know that ache, we've all had it, that ache you get, you go and work out, you hit the gym, you get that ache the next day. Foam rolling, literally about 30 to 60 seconds on that aching body part has been shown to improve the range of movement that the muscle will allow, and also the speed of contraction. So that helps from a performance standpoint. So there's certainly a rationale for using the foam roller. So yeah, it's definitely worth it. And in terms of the type that you go for, it would be one that doesn't squash and deform. So just a bit of a plug. We sell some on our on our website. So if anybody's looking to get one, and also there's a useful foam rolling video on our Facebook channel that I popped up on there, just showing briefly how you can kind of get into certain areas in the body.
Oh, perfect. Thanks, Fred. What we'll do is we'll make sure we share those links in our Facebook group so that Devinda can get a hand on that as well.
Cool.
Perfect. So next question. This one might be aimed at Elena or Martin. It was from Laura in our Facebook group. Is there going to be a relaxation proposed for visually impaired people to be able to enjoy the same liberties as fully sighted people when it comes to cycling and running? So we've had quite a few questions about this, Elena and Martin. I think obviously now that people are allowed to exercise outside at the moment, running, cycling, things like that are encouraged, but for people with a vision impairment that rely on a guide, it makes that situation a little bit more complex and it's a little bit unclear at the moment. So are you able to either you able to shed any light on that?
Martin, do you want to answer, or do you want me?
Yeah, happy to do so. I think that the short answer at the moment is no. Is that the 2 metre social distancing is referenced on all national governing bodies' websites, which does make taking part in some of those activities that you mentioned, Alex, somewhat challenging. There are examples of where some of the Metro members have been running with people outside of their household, but the guiding has been done where they're in a very large open space like a park, and somebody's ringing in front with some audible equipment, and the person that they are guiding is following. But obviously that needs A, some audible equipment, and B, it needs a large open space. Obviously outdoor activities can be enjoyed now and as often as people want to, but all the evidence at the moment and the guidance, I should say, is certainly recommending the 2 metre social distancing.
Can I just add to that, and thank you, Martin, and it's a really useful question, Laura. We're very consciously aware that the guidelines as they currently stand from the government, not just about sport, but just generally with the 2 metres distance, can have a massive impact on the lives of people with visual impairment. And we are not sitting on our laurels about that. We've had conversations with Sport England, we've had conversations with the British Paralympics and UK Sport. There's a team of us meeting on the 10th to find out what all of the issues are, because we can only assume some of them, and it's more important that we speak to VI people, and some of you will be aware of that meeting. But on top of that, I had a very long meeting with the RNIB yesterday, who have got a conversation with Sport England today, because we are a small organisation at the end of the day, and having the RNIB have that weight behind us is really useful. So they've got a meeting with the head of disability sport today at Sport England, and I have outlined all of our concerns for probably about the 100th time. And we're not there to complain to Sport England. We want to make them aware of the problem, and as a team, Martin, myself, Alex, Hannah, there's a few of us, and the RNIB and Guide Dogs, we're really going to try and look at some solutions and then provide them to the government, because I don't think they're trying to be difficult. I think they don't know the answer. So the answer's got to come from the experts in the field, which is a lot of the people on this call. I hope that answers your question in a bit more detail.
That's perfect. Thank you, Elena. I've just checked the chat. We've got a follow-on question from Rosine for Fred about foam rolling. So Rosie has said that she uses a massage gun for percussive therapy to bust some knots that she gets after Pilates, and just for general day-to-day use. She said it doesn't beat getting a sports massage done, but she wonders if there are any damages, or if there is any damage that can be done, or should she just keep getting in their club handed to bust all the knots?
Is that, yeah. So yeah, I've actually just got hold of one of these massage guns. We work with Compex, a company called Compex UK, and yeah, they are quite handy. I'm getting into it. You know, if you say I'm training for a thing in September, so I'm doing a lot of cycling and running myself. So yeah, those knots, yeah, that muscle ache you get, and using the massage gun has definitely helped, because it's quite a new product. There isn't that, it doesn't come with a sort of wealth of evidence of good quality evidence anyway. Usually it's the producers of these tools that kind of make the evidence, so they're a bit biased, but they are good. Can you damage yourself with them? I mean, the one we've got is, there's a fair bit of power in it, so yeah, if you were to put that in the wrong place, but your body, pain is your tutor on that one. So if you feel that it's uncomfortable, yeah, absolutely avoid it. But if you're getting into the muscle, getting into the kind of, you're staying right in the meat of the muscle, it can help. One thing I did find with it though, the vibration that it causes can actually help relax the muscle a bit better. So I've actually been using it, putting your, say your body into a stretch position. Say you're stretching your hamstring, so putting the hamstring into a stretch and then using the massage gun on it, it actually allows more range, which is quite interesting. So yeah, just a few different techniques. Keep an eye on our social media channels. I'm actually putting together a few videos for how to use those massage guns. But yeah, be careful with them. It's basically a Black & Decker with a flipping tennis ball on it. So be careful with it. But yeah, if you're getting into the muscle and they're usually tuned so that if you put too much pressure, they just stop anyway. So, but yeah, they are certainly, from anecdotal evidence anyway, they are good.
Yeah. I was I was quite happy to add something to that as well, if you like.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, basically, so so in terms of like kind of recovery, really, I guess it's like, so it's just like a little insight to what I do. So I do kind of more of like a sort of almost like a CrossFit style workout, a compound movement followed by a metabolic circuit. And I do sort of more of a bodybuilding day, and then like my visually impaired tennis on the third day. And then the fourth day, I would do like a big mobility and stretch session. And so what I do is I sort of do a few minutes of kind of mobility exercises, where they're gentle and stuff like that. And then I have like a really good stretch. And then I use something like a foam roller or a massage gun. And basically the kind of rule I go on is basically every hour of exercise I do kind of 15 minutes stretching and recovery. And I think it's super important. Like, it's something I've really noticed becoming a PT, because I started exercising more because I was just in the gym all the time. Like I started overdoing it. So it's a case of, it's really important taking those days out to just like sit down and have like a mobility day and a recovery day. And my mobility's improved massively. Since my mobility's improved, holding stretches for longer, using massage guns, using rollers, my injuries are going down, and I don't get back pain anymore, stuff like that. So yes, I think it can be good to like have a mix of everything. But again, because I do sports therapy. I'm a sports therapist myself, so I'm obviously not as qualified as our physio. But it's a case of, in terms of using the guns and things, it's like almost use like a guide in your head of like 10 out of 10 is, oh my God, get off me pain. And 1 out of 10 is, I can hardly feel it. It's like the same thing with stretches as well, and with the gun and with the foam roller. So I stick to kind of like a 6 out of 10 in terms of discomfort. So, if you're above that, if you're using the gun in an area and you're above that pain threshold, maybe back off or whatever. But I do find them really helpful. I find like all that kind of equipment really good, basically.
Thanks, Nick. Everyone's got a different pain threshold. I think I'd be crying at a 6 out of 10, but each their own.
But that's it. The 6 out of 10 is all personal though. So like,
Yeah.
you're still aiming for the same. You're still aiming for the same number, but like someone's 6 out of 10 might be a lot. It's a bit like the massage technique. You know, someone set 6 out of 10 pressure on a trigger point. You know, they could actually handle more pressure at 6 out of 10 than someone else. So it's all personal, if that makes sense.
Basically, my 6 out of 10 is probably your 2 out of 10, Nick.
Oh, I don't know. I get very sore from a lot of training, so I don't know.
We had a question. Lois had just started that social media of Fred's Strongline Physio to be shared. So that's now been shared in the chat channel. What we'll make sure we also do is share that in the Facebook group off the back of this call. We've got a question. Again, this one's directed for you, Nick, from Jeanette. Just put in this chat now. She said she's been recovering from a big food operation. Does Nick have any advisement on exercises that can help?
So
I think she maybe said, I think that might have been foot operation, I'm going to assume there.
Okay, so a foot operation. I mean, I presume so, foot operation. But yeah, I mean, the thing is, again, I had to admit, probably the physio may be able to give you a few more exercises, because it depends on. So Fred might be able to give you a few more, a bit more. His knowledge would be a bit vaster than mine. But like I've just gone through a bit of plantar fasciitis myself and stuff like that. And it's basically, if you stick to the kind of basic principles of obviously, your rest, ice compression, elevate, stuff like that after the, immediately after the operation. But then there's also like another thing you should consider is the right amount of exercise is then going to be good for it. So whether it's, something very, very gentle and simple, in terms of just like sitting on the sofa, just like scrunching your toes up with like on a blanket or something, versus, it all depends on the type of operation she's had, really. I mean, can we find out any more on that?
Yeah. If I could build on that as well, definitely more information in terms of the procedure you've had and also when that was. So bang on with immediate post-op, the effort should be to get the swelling out of there and encourage normal blood flow and healing and things like that. So like a sort of police protocol. So doing as much as you can without exacerbating it. There may as well be a post-operative protocol that you want to be adhering to, depending on the site and the type of the operation and also who did it. So it'd be good to know that. But yeah, definitely as time then goes on, you're thinking of loading the tissue progressively to get that adaptation and restore normal function. So you want to get the range back, then we start getting the right muscle activation, then building the muscular capacity, then building the strength, and then trying to make it as functional as possible. So yeah, really, really depends on what type of operation you've had and sort of timeframes that we're talking. But that might be something, we could talk about more formally in a physio capacity. But yeah, I don't know if that helps.
Jeanette, I don't know if you're able to unmute your mic if you wanted to give any further information about your injury, just to see if Fred and Nick can give any more info. Let me see if I can unmute you 1 second.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
They had my toes was going under each toe, so they had to break two of my toes to straighten them.
Okay. And when do you know when did you have it done?
It was in December, but
Okay.
I supposed to see my physio, and I didn't get to see my physio because of the lockdown. So
Nightmare. Okay. So fine. So you're a good few months post-op. I imagine everything's healed up well. You're back weight bearing normally.
I am weight bearing. It's a lot on the left, where my big toe is, and it goes down the knuckle bit. It does hurt a lot on that, but I'm sort of quite addicted to exercise. So I do go on the treadmill, and obviously I do the sessions.
Okay.
I don't know if it doesn't hurt any more than it does when I'm sitting down, but
Fine. Yeah, it's okay. So definitely worth looking at the. Were you in a boot post-op? They put you in a boot or anything?
yeah, I was in a boot for. I had to elevate for 6 weeks, and then I even had to use a Zumba frame for a while, which
Okay.
is good for somebody who wants to get out and about.
It's not a good look, is it? Yeah. Fine. So yeah, the boot, being in the boot for 6 weeks tends to, all your plantar fascia and the flexors of the toes and things tend to shorten. So then we have more of a rigid foot. The midfoot tends to stiffen as well. So yeah, the function of the foot can then be a little bit compromised. Range of movement in the ankle, we need to look at that. And also, 6 weeks of phasing your way back to walking over about 6 to 12 weeks. It's going to be your muscles in that leg and further up the chain, so calf, hamstrings, glutes, and things like that are going to be a little bit atrophied as well. So, yeah, usually would probably similar to Nick's take, I imagine, in terms of looking at the strength and the capacity you've got, looking at how you're moving, and seeing how we can restore as normal function as possible.
Thank you.
Thank you. What we'll do, Fred, is it might be worth actually connecting Jeanette up with you just to further explore that matter as well.
Sure.
So
yeah,
next
definitely.
Happen, then we can do that. Can
I just say sorry? Can I just say thank you? We're not being able to see a video. It's like I haven't got a clue what to do, and I can't.
It's so hard.
Guys.
Yeah, and it's I think the NHS basically outpatients basically just closed, and particularly immediate post-op. That was an important time frame to get cracking on it as well. So we are obviously still open to doing virtual consultations. So you can always access us via that. But obviously that's it's not a GP service. But yeah, we're happy to help out in any way we can.
Perfect. Thanks, guys. We've got a couple more questions in the chat, but I'm just going to go back to one that we have now from the Facebook group, which again I think probably will be aimed at either Elena or Martin. So this is a question around sports facilities and gyms. So are there going to be, or are you planning on sufficient guidelines or processes in place for people with sight loss when sports facilities or gyms reopen? And do you think that inclusivity will be part of the planning when these places reopen? Good question.
Yeah, it is a good question. The guidance that has been released by UK Active and SIMSPA about reopening facilities is at the moment, I would suggest, quite generalised in terms of their advice that they are giving. But as Elena mentioned earlier, then collectively we're actively lobbying for things like this to change. It's expected that some leisure facilities will reopen on the 4th of July, and there will be restrictions in place in terms of capacity. So there may well be, you may well find that from a bank of perhaps treadmills in the gym, every other treadmill will not be in use, and so those sort of things will be in place, and capacity might well be at 50%. But what we need to lobby on more generally is the advice and guidance that they're giving to their users and members before they return, because at the moment there's an absence of detail in that guidance that would say how to inform members about perhaps the changes of layout for a building. The guidance talks about at the moment putting signs in reception and putting floor markings in areas to maintain the social distancing, all of which are extremely useful. But that's not going to help somebody that has a visual impairment. So there is more work that needs to be done to make sure that they are as inclusive as they can be.
Perfect, thank you. Elaine, have you got anything to add to that?
Sorry, Alex, just to add to that, everything Martin said is absolutely right. One of the things that we are talking to Sport England about and UK Sport is about the training around staff in the leisure centres. Martin made a very good point in one of the sort of run up to the meeting that we've got on the 10th was about the redesigning of facilities. So if somebody's visually impaired and actually have been using a facility in the past, that redesign that you just talked about, maybe every other space and stuff, it's really important that staff consider those sort of things and not just assume. So they're all going to be part of the process and the guidelines that we're pushing Sport England and the Department of Culture, Media and Sport to consider.
Thank you.
There's lessons there, Alex, that we can learn from in terms of the issues that people have faced with regards to supermarkets and queues and barriers and those kind of things that have been put in place to learn some of those lessons for the guidance that would help operators to reopen, sports clubs to reopen.
Yeah, that's so true. I think obviously the supermarkets hadn't considered specific impairments or disability groups when they released their guidelines. So least with the gyms, even though it is sad that they're not able to open as soon, we can make sure that BBS and Metro can provide any support or advice and guidance to leisure centres for when they are able to reopen. Perfect. So I've got another question in the chat. Actually, Ines and Rosie asked a similar question. So this might be aimed at Nick or Fred. So it was around tips on how often to have rest days per week, and when you have a rest day, what do you do on a rest day? So what do you do that's different? Do you change the way that you eat on rest days compared to training days? Nick, I'll hand that one over to you.
Yeah, sure. I sort of touched on it a little bit earlier with, so basically I kind of, my current kind of split of training is I sort of do 3 days of sort of working out, and then every 4th day I do a whole, like I basically set it as a normal workout as such, but I only do mobility and recovery stuff. So that's where I'll do like a really big long stretch. So it will be like an hour session. Like I just stick something on my iPad, some TV or something, and I'll just sit there and just have a timer on my phone, and I'll just run some stretches. I've got some stretch routines on my channel and stuff, but like then I use the some foam rollers. I might use the massage gun, depending on the area of how easy it is to stretch. There's some general areas where I get tighter than others just because of my genetic structure and the stuff I do that I'll stretch more. But yeah, my eating doesn't really change on my recovery days, but I am doing, I do quite a lot of training. So I find, I have a certain structure. I have a certain rough structure I stick to each day anyway, in terms of my food, and it doesn't really bother me too much. I just eat the same on my, but my nutrition that I do have on every day is, there's certain things I try and hit, but I'm not too detailed. I like to keep it quite simple. Like I feel like my job is actually trying to complicate everything for everyone, because there's just so much information out there. It's just. But basically what I do is stick to that rough rule. Every hour you do of exercise, I try and do 15 minutes of stretching. So that 3 days on of training, then 1 day off of recovery, I tend to do at least an hour of kind of recovery stuff. And I've just found that's been the biggest thing, the biggest improvement for me, because like I spent 15 years in gyms, never stretching, and I really paid for it in the later when I started, as I went on. So yeah, so that's something I really recommend, is the recovery is just as it. And it's something I do with my clients now as well, is actually a lot of people, especially as people get older, like so I've got a chap who was a banker in London, he did loads and loads of cycling. All his life he cycled and stuff like that, but never stretched, and his hips and stuff are just so tight. So 15 minutes at the end of every single session, every hour session we do, we spend on good long stretching mobility stuff, and he's seen a huge improvement in And then not only that, but then the tighter those muscles get, the more likely they are to kind of pull on joints and things, or pull things slightly out of line, and cause kind of discrepancies in the body, imbalances, where you're tighter on one side than the other, and things like which can lead to injury. So I really value recovery days as much as my exercise days, basically. But yeah.
Perfect, thank you. Fred, is there anything you wanted to add to that one, or did Nick?
Yeah, I'd 100% agree with Nick on that. Like I'm a physio, so I see so many people come in that have overtrained, and nothing necessarily wrong with them, but they've overtrained, particularly endurance athletes, running, cycling, and I'm guilty of it still in my own training. You go and you try and personal best every training session, but it's good to build over a period of weeks, but as you would have a rest day in the week, also having a period of deload, so say every anything from every fourth week or something, just to bring your training down to about 60% or so, just to have a deload week and allow your body to recover. That's hugely important. And I agree with Nick there. Like, nobody's ever said, "Oh, I wish I was more flexible or more mobile." It's the stretching is the bit that gets kind of forgotten. So it's definitely worth keeping the mobility there and having those periodic kind of deload periods. Definitely very important.
Perfect, thank you. We're getting some good old questions in this chat. We could be here all day, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just try and go through the ones that maybe are more generic to everyone. I have got a question from Rosie. It's a follow-on question about the guidance for VI people getting back into sport. Rosie's asked if British Blind Sport or Metro Blind Sport are linking in or have been having conversations with anyone in regards to transport, because obviously for visually impaired people actually getting to the sessions we know is a huge barrier, and transport guidance will be released soon. At the moment, I think transport links have reduced as well massively in the current situation. So I don't know, Martin or Elena, if you've got any information around that, or if there's been any conversations at the moment around supporting with transport links.
Can I answer this one, Martin, and certainly add to it if you know any more? That is part of the conversation that the RNIB is having with Sport England today. The RNIB have just released a questionnaire about the impact of lockdown, and I've got the figure written down yesterday from a meeting, but I think it's 74% of people, this isn't to do with sport necessarily, 74% of visually impaired people feel less independent as a result of lockdown and the guidelines around it, and we're questioning that now quite strongly. And part of the RNIB never professed to be the sports players in the business. That's the likes of Martin and ourselves. So they're going into Sport England as a very holistic approach with, well, how are you even going to get people there to the gym before you consider anything else? So that is something the RNIB is definitely pushing on our behalf. And I'm having a conversation with guide dogs next week on the same issue, because there's their My Guide service, which has clearly been very impacted by this because of the 2 metre distance. Martin, do you have anything to add to that?
All I'd add, I suppose, is that we know that guide dogs are campaigning on transport matters and encouraging people to write to their MPs to make them aware of the guidance that they've been looking at. And within the sight loss sector, then organisations like RNIB, Guide Dogs, Thomas Pocklington Trust are working together to tackle some of these matters. And I think from our perspective, operating in London, we don't at the moment have the answer to the issues around transport and social distancing, other than that we know that those organisations like London Vision are liaising with TfL to make sure that procedures are in place to support people that are on public transport. There's a little bit more in that question as well about governing bodies and general advice, and at the moment, governing bodies are updating their guidance on a regular basis, but at the moment it's more related to outdoor activity because that's what can occur at the moment. I'll share a link on the chat from London Sport, who are updating their website with the guidance from the governing bodies as and when it's released. But I think that's going to be, at the moment, everybody that is doing indoor activity isn't really updating any guidance, and those that are sticking to 2 metre rule. And following last night's update, there were a few that have started talking about doing activities with 6 people, but Sport England haven't updated their guidance yet about the announcement last night.
Perfect.
To say is there. I feel like I might be able to add just one thing on top of that. I don't know if it might help, but like at the moment, what is allowed is one-to-one personal training outdoors. Is actually is allowed with spacing. I mean, there might obviously personal training is a bit more expensive and stuff like that. But a lot of personal trainers like myself are offering discount during this time. If you are able to walk to a local park and get in contact with a local personal trainer, like that's something or if you're able to, someone from the same household is able to drive you to a nearest park or something to meet a personal trainer, and also from the general vibe I'm sort of hearing for this Sunday is they might announce that it's going to be like almost small groups, but from 2 households and so. In terms of what I'm offering in terms of business, I'm doing personal training outdoor, one-on-one, keeping distance, gels, and I've got like a little station for every single person that's wiped down before and after, et cetera, et cetera. So I am offering. Obviously, this isn't going to be much help for someone living in London, for where I am. But but I'm sure there'd be a personal trainer somewhere in your area who'd be happy to meet up with you in a local park. If you feel comfortable if it's somewhere you can walk to, or someone from the same household to be able to drive you there. Don't know if that helps, but.
No, that's perfect. That does help. Thanks very much, Nick. I did see that that announcement by Boris yesterday about, is it like small groups of up to 6, I think? So that might alleviate some of the worries about, people trying to get to sessions and stuff like that. I've got a couple of questions about running actually, and I'll tie the question into one. The first one has just been sent in this chat from Lois. So she's asked if there have been any suggestions of running tracks to open to allow visually impaired people to be able to run in a safe environment whilst the gyms and guide running is a bit difficult to access. And we've got a follow-on question that was sent in to us about, I guess, if there isn't any suggestions for running tracks to open, but someone is a keen runner and they want to make sure they can keep their training up, what exercises or drills could you recommend for a runner who is unable to access a running guide or who might be unable to access tracks? So in regards to the tracks question, I don't know if I can ask that one out to Elena or Martin, and then in terms of the drills and exercises, that might be one more for Nick and Fred.
Yeah, in terms of tracks, then UK Athletics are saying that tracks should only open at the discretion and the consent of the owners, and with most outdoor facilities that are opening, things like clubhouses or toilets and those types of things are remaining closed. Their advice is very similar to, I think, to probably what we've been saying, of following the government advice. One-to-one coach and athlete or participant can occur, so a little bit similar to what Nick was saying in terms of that one-to-one training, and obviously following hygiene procedures and 2 meters. So from a UK Athletics element and track opening, I think that covers that part, but wouldn't want to talk about the activities themselves. I'll pass that over to the experts.
Nick, have you got any ideas of exercises and drills for a runner so they can keep up their training from home?
Yeah, so I mean, the thing is so in terms of training for running, obviously, you know, the thing is you don't so my kind of general advice is, you know, obviously there's only so much you can run, isn't there? You know, in terms of actually just going out and doing running and stuff like that. So it's quite good to actually sometimes train up the muscles that help support running. So, you know, like going and training, you know, actually doing, say, more muscular stuff, you know, so a bit like the, you know, say the strengthening tone at home stuff I've been doing on YouTube, and also for British Blind Sports and the live workouts where you can say, you know, can get, so for example, one of the super important muscle for running is your glutes, you know, making sure your glutes are firing, so they support your knee, they support your hips and stuff like that. And so we can actually do some specific strengthening of those muscles pre-running. And yeah, and then apart from that, you've obviously got your hit start training, your kind of 45 seconds on, 15 seconds off of sort of, you know, of like, you know, sort of more moves like high knees and burpees where it's all done on the spot. If you're a bit worried about, say, well, obviously going out and running is obviously going to be impossible for some people. So, so yeah, so hit start training like that with a good audio description. Yeah, at home stuff, whatever. Yeah. Don't know if Fred has anything else, because he does. It sounds like he does do quite a lot of running. So yeah,
definitely. There's a couple of easy things you can do. Often, one of the most common things we see in runners is anterior knee pain, so kind of pain around the kneecap, and that is usually because of an overstride. So a tendency for people to try and cover as much ground in one stride as possible, really extending the foot out in front of them, striking the ground with prominently with the heel, with a shin angle that's kind of going backwards, and that causes a lot of knee pain and is actually quite inefficient. So a good way you can get around that is just we try and get people running to cadence, so running to a beat. A good target is anywhere between sort of 170 175 plus beats per minute, and it doesn't mean you run faster, but you stay at the same splits, the same minute mile, and just just have those feet running at that beat. It really fixes a lot of mechanical inefficiency with running that can lead to pain and things like that. And definitely, you know, making sure that you've got a good capacity in your hamstrings, your glutes, your calves, and yeah, a bit of a warm up to fire up those muscles before you go out is always advisable. And then some mobility work when you get back, good old foam roller.
Perfect, thank you. Hopefully that was interesting for a lot of people, that it maybe even those that aren't running, it's just good stuff to be getting on with whilst they're at home. I've got quite a long question here. Now this one's going to be for Elena and Martin, and it's about horse riding. So this individual really enjoys horse riding. She used to ride a lot before COVID. Now she's aware that there's going to be guidance taking place in relation to provision for individuals taking on sporting activities. She wants to know if there's going to be any criteria, or if there's any plans with the RDA, the Riding for Disabled Association, around how individuals can ride, because at the moment for her, many stables have stated that unless an individual can independently mount and dismount a horse, then they're only able to ride. So she's unable to do this because she needs a guide to help her. Is there any thoughts around this, or have you guys got any plans about supporting clubs with guidance and advice on stuff like that?
Martin, do you want me to answer that one? Yeah. Okay, so that is the guidance, that's the general guidance around horse riding, but the RDA do actually have their own centres. They either are party to, you know, private horse riding stables and use their facilities once or twice a day, and that will be very much led on the guidance of the owners, just like Martin had mentioned with the tracks earlier. but they do actually have a number of centres that are solely owned by the RDA. So a conversation that we need to have as British Blind Sport is, what are the RDA going to do to offer that support? Now, Ed, who's the CEO, is possibly one of the most proactive CEOs I've ever met, and I know he will be looking at this as a priority, so we'll pick that up with him. Just as a wider thing, I think there's 49 governing bodies of sport, and we are regularly getting questions about combat sport because of the close proximity, about unusual sports that people don't use so much, like horse riding, because I don't think there is enough out there for it. So we are trying to speak to the likes of Sport England and say, do not blanket sport, but you've got to look at it on a sport by sport basis. And to be fair to UK sport, they've already started that process. They've already said, in line with combat sport itself, for sighted and non-sighted people, is very unlikely to start again until at least November, because they've got there's 5 criteria that UK sport are adhering to, which is about facilities, coaching, participants, and also about audiences, live audiences, that things like the FA are trying to get to stage 5, which is, let's get us all back to big crowds and stuff as soon as possible. But actually there's 4 other stages to go in between. So I think UK sport have got the right approach, which is, let's not blanket everybody, let's do it sport by sport. What we're trying to do is say, and then on top of that, what is the sport by sport doing for VI people?
Perfect, thank you. Martin, have you got anything to add to that, or did Elena mark it all off?
Elena answered that perfectly. Horse riding is not my area of expertise, so I'm glad Elena could answer that one.
Nailed it,
ironically, we don't see many horses go down the street in London unless there's a police officer on it. So yeah, I can imagine it's not a sport used too much in London.
And just a thing from, I guess, to cover that with, I don't know if Elena already covered this, but with all clubs and things at the moment. So for those of you that don't know, we've obviously got our online activity finder, and we've got over 900 clubs on there. We did seek consultation with those clubs at the start of COVID to try and determine what support or guidance those clubs are going to need to be able to welcome visually impaired people back to their session when they're able to reopen. So we're in the process of, we've got the survey responses back and we're analysing it. On the 10th of June, I think we're meeting with some of those partners to just try and understand the worries, the barriers in a little bit more detail, and then hopefully we can collectively provide some guidance for all sports, all clubs around welcoming back visually impaired individuals. So that's kind of the main questions. I don't know if there's a few other questions that we've got. Some of them are a little bit specific. What I'll do is I've got one question from Jess that I'll ask you. If there was any questions that people had asked that's not been answered, I will do my best to try and speak to the panel members off the back of this call, and then I can come back to you, or Hannah, our comms officer, can just message you guys on Facebook to answer your specific questions. But let me just read the one from Jess and see if anyone can help with that. So Jess says that after she's done lower body workouts, she gets an ache in her knees. She's checked with a personal trainer that she's doing the exercises right, but should she be worried, or do you guys have any tips to stop the aching? So Fred, this could be one for you.
Yeah, so aching in the front of the knee can be a number of structures that cause the pain. So it can be the tendon, it can be the patellofemoral joint, it can be the little tibiofibular joint, tibiofibular joint that's at the top there. You can have a number of things that would cause it. And then there's a number of mechanical drivers to it. So, but the management of the pain would be different. So if it was a tendon, you have to progressively load that area. If it's the joints, then you have to try and unload the area. So both are managed very differently. But obviously, yeah, working out shouldn't be causing you pain. You should get that adaptive kind of ache, but certainly not cause you pain. You may find that focusing on developing your calves, hamstrings and glutes a little bit more, and avoiding knee dominant exercises like squats, or maybe modifying how you're doing them. So you could try a little bit of a heel lift. You could try looking at your squat mechanics. you can sometimes just be doing too much of a knee dominant exercise. So, you know, squats, lunges, step ups, these are all very knee dominant. Whereas a deadlift, particularly a Romanian deadlift, straight leg deadlift, hamstring exercises don't load the front of the knee. So you can certainly work around it. But yeah, you shouldn't be in pain after the exercises.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that one, Fred. Okay, final one from my list of questions, which is from a lady called Julie on our Facebook group. This one might be a good one for Nick. The question is that Julie wants to tighten the muscles on her underarms, so I guess her tricep areas. About 4 years ago, she had a shoulder injury and she still suffers some pain from it. What exercises could she do to target those muscles without putting too much of a strain on her shoulder? Don't know how challenging it is, Nick. Take that away.
Say that again, sorry.
So I don't know how much of a challenging question that is, so the floor is yours.
It all sort of depends. So basically, so for example, I've got a bit of a shoulder injury myself at the moment. So I've got a damaged rotator cuff at the moment, so I'm doing very little pressing and stuff like that. So what I'll then do is I'll choose, that I'm still training my triceps, but I'll choose exercises that don't hurt it. You know, if I'm doing say doing tricep dips off a bench, you know, most people have heard of that one, you know, so you just lower your bum off the seat and lower yourself up and down. Like for example, I wouldn't do that one because obviously, so if I feel pain in that, I'm not going to do that one. I'm going to choose something else. So particularly the tricep and the reason why I chose that one as well is because particularly the tricep nose, but it's probably going to put the shoulder under the most pressure because the sort of joint sort of closes off as you go down. So something I would do instead is maybe something where I'm more lying on my back, or so basically it's just trying lots of different tricep exercises till you find one that doesn't hurt, basically. But you know, take it very gently to start with. You know, it all depends on the level of shoulder injury and where she is with her recovery and stuff as well. But like, so for example, for me, say a more overhead tricep extension like this, so you keep your elbows tight to your head, you hold the weight between your hands and you just go up and down, either standing or you can do it in a chair, which is, you know, but you want a chair with a fairly low back so the dumbbell doesn't hit the chair. I find that one doesn't hurt my tricep, my shoulder as I'm training my triceps. So I'm doing more of that one than say another one. You know, there's a few different ones you can do. So there could be, if you do have any kind of weight, you could lie on your back. And I don't know if you can see me that well, but like if I stand back here. So imagine can you see all of me?
You're probably going to have to talk this one through, Nick, for the majority.
Okay. Oh yeah, of course, yeah, sorry. So what we're going to do is, so imagine if you're lying on your back and you have the weight above your head, okay, and then you sort of had the weight slightly behind your head, then kind of bend at the elbows, straighten at the elbows, like you know, sort of, it's almost like a tricep extension lying on your back. Yeah, so it's a case of there's a few different ones you can try, but it's basically about if you feel bad pain during any exercise, you shouldn't do it. Is the general rule, you know. So it's like you know, if you're squatting and you're feeling like a bite on the front of your knee, you know, you're feeling like a sort of stabby pain. You know, so it's differentiating the type of pain. It's like, is it a dull ache in the muscle, which is like a good pain, or is it a short, stabby, sharp pain somewhere where you shouldn't really feel it? If you're feeling that, don't do that move until that area has recovered, basically. I don't know if yeah, that answers it.
Thank you. Brilliant. So that's just about wrapped up our morning. What I might do is, just for anyone that doesn't know how to work the chat feature, is just open it up to anyone now. So if you've got any questions, if you just wanted to put your hand up, and I can try and see those that are on webcam. If anyone has got any questions, I can take you off mute. So I'll just do that for a couple of minutes. Jeanette, let me try and work out how I took you off mute the last time, unless you can do that.
I've just done it for you, Alex.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. It's the nutrition one, really. I don't know if I put it in the group, but I'm a vegetarian. I'm allergic to any kind of nuts. And as a runner, I'd like to find out the best nutrition I could get from food.
Is this your question around it was protein, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
This
We
is-
haven't got.
I was just going to say one thing. Yeah, really important to be getting enough protein in, and very, very difficult. Like you say, as a veggie with an intolerance to was it peanuts?
Yeah, any kind of peanuts.
Soy,
Yeah.
any nut. Yeah, really difficult. I mean, they're obviously the best avenues to find a good nutritionist, somebody who can help. We have a couple of contacts that we tend to refer people to, who are excellent. She's a vegan specialist nutritionist who works with a chap called Kip, who we were treating. He ran 52 marathons in 52 weeks last couple of years ago. It's insane, all around the world. But so yeah, we tend to refer out. So, but it would be worth finding a good source of information on how to get it in, because yeah, if you just through having not enough protein, not enough calories, you don't recover as well. So your exercise tolerance reduces and your injury risk goes up. So yeah, it's definitely worth exploring those avenues. I'll dig out some, if I can get your contact, we can send over a few ideas of people you might be able to make contact with.
Thank you.
I feel like I could jump in on that a little bit, if you like, as well. Like that, yeah, exactly, all exactly right. But that's the thing. But there are basically, there's a few other protein sources you could look at. Basically, is your kind of legumes. So lentils, for example, 26 grams of protein per 100 grams. That's more than chicken. You know, you've got your red kidney beans, about 15 grams of protein per 100 grams. You know, chickpeas. Haricot beans are actually quite good, you know, so the things that are in baked beans, the actual haricot beans themselves, you can buy them separately. You know, that's loads of good protein in there. I mean, they do have a fairly high number of carbs as well, but they do have a good number of, they do have a good quality amount of protein. But then also, like, I mean, so quite often I'll mix them in with my, so basically, since a few things that have come out, and I work with a lot of doctors and things, I train a lot of doctors and medical professionals and stuff like that. And you know, there is a consensus around. So I've tried to, only because I used to eat so much animal meat, I have tried to reduce my animal meat intake. And how I've done that is by introducing things like red kidney beans, haricot beans, chickpeas, lentils, stuff like that to kind of get the overall protein level up. But also you've got, and then failing that, if you just don't like them or anything like that, you know, you can look at like a supplement website, and you could look at, there are on, say, myprotein.com, that's one of the sort of easiest ones to find. They do have special protein powders for vegans and vegetarians, it would say on there. So yeah, so that's another option if all else fails, you know, because it's super important to get that protein in. Protein is like the building blocks of everything in your body. So, and especially if you're exercising a lot, you want to be getting a good level of protein in, basically.
Yeah, thank you. Just I found the on the internet, it's just like a minefield, but I will look at the MyProtein, and all the food you just suggested I really do like, so thank you very much.
Perfect.
No worries.
Thank you. All right, guys.
Alex, I know you're just rounding up, but just one question from me really is, obviously this call has taken a lot of people's time, and that's absolutely fine, but it's really useful for us to have feedback as to know whether this call has been useful to you guys. You may have been asking that, Alex, so sorry if I preempted you, but you know, either do a thumbs up now, or if you could feedback through the Facebook group, because things are changing so much with lockdown and the ease, and that we're really pushing forward on guidelines, that if we know that these sort of calls are useful to you, you know, the whole national picture might look different in 2 weeks' time, and we'd be more than happy to do it again, but we'll only do it if we actually feel that you guys are getting something out of it.
That's brilliant. Thanks, Elena. What we'll do is we usually do things like put polls in that Facebook group that I know most of the people in this call are on. So we can put a poll on the Facebook group. You guys want to give me a thumbs up now, I can get that and see that you guys enjoyed that. I know that we had a message from Rosie. She just said thanks so much to British Blind Sport, Metro, Nick and Fred. everyone else. This has been super informative, and she's really enjoyed it. She hopes everyone has a smashing day and that we're all back to the sports that we love soon. So that's quite a nice message from Rosie. And yeah, we'll get that poll out. I found that really useful. I hope everyone else did too. And just a thank you really to Elaine, Martin, Nick and Fred for giving up an hour of your Friday morning to come in and answer all those questions. That was fab.